Golf Central, brought to you by TaylorMade.
Sedgefield Country Club, designed by Hall of Fame architect Donald Ross, opened for golf in 1926 and starting in the late 30s rotated with another area Greensboro club to host an annual PGA Tour event. Since 2008, it has been the host of the Wyndham Championship, the final regular season event on the PGA Tour. Well, how about the Fedex Cup standings heading into this final week? The guy at the top has already clinched the Wyndham Rewards bonus. That is Justin Thomas. Colin Morikawa, off of his PGA Championship victory, is second, and a multi-time winner, Webb Simpson, who has done exceptionally well at Sedgefield, sits there at third. Well, with that, welcome inside Studio A. It is Golf Central. It is great to have you with us. Gary Williams, that is Jim Gallagher Jr. Now, every week, players play, and they be mildly aware of the scenarios outside of just doing their best each week. But the goal, Jim, is to win. So why don't we go back to 1995? Boy, you look good, didn't you then? Forest Oaks was the site. Hardware for you, Jim Gallagher Jr.
Yeah, it was a great week. I actually, for breakfast, I had 4 Krispy Kreme donuts because there they had them everywhere, and I shot 31 or 2 at the front, and I figured it was working. I had 2 more to turn, so I was on a pretty good sugar high. Came back from 7 back to win. It caught up to me now, all those donuts, but it was a great week. It was really cold that Sunday, and a finish I'll always remember. Always played great there. Loved going to Greensboro. It was one of my special places, and stayed with Harold Moose and everyone out there at High Point. Just always had fun that week.
Well, when you pass a Krispy Kreme and that hot light is on, you pull in.
Exactly.
All right, well, what we're pulling into this week is the fact that this is the last regular season event for the PGA Tour. The top 125, we know, are going to make it to that first leg of the Fedex Cup playoffs. 3 of the top 10 in the world are in the field. I mentioned Justin Thomas, the Wyndham Rewards, that $2 million bonus, pocketed already. Webb Simpson, Sunjam could reach that $1.5 million bonus as well. There's a lot of money, but most importantly, how about all that playoff bonus money as well? A guy who's got 4 major championships. He's coming off of a disappointing week. He will play alongside Jordan Spieth, that of course being Brooks Koepka. Jordan Spieth lost to Patrick Reed in a playoff in 2013 there. And of course, there's Justin Rose. He had himself set up on the weekend at the PGA Championship, didn't play particularly well on Sunday. So look, when you look at these 3 players, and let's start with Brooks Koepka, because he loves baseball.
Yeah.
The boys this summer are playing. He's playing every week. He's playing every day. What does that say to you about him doing this 6 in a row?
Shows me how important the playoffs are to him. Last year he was up there at the top, so it didn't really, he always took the big tournaments and all that, but this shows me how, because he went to the 3M. He's playing, like you said, 6 in a row. He's trending in the right direction. He hadn't totally cleaned up everything. Last Sunday, let it get away from him. Memphis had a chance to win bogey 16, a par 5, which you cannot do, and then 18. But he's trending in the right direction. I think Sunday last week, he never got it close enough, never gave him the opportunities. If he did anything, he hit some pulls for a cutter. That's okay. It's not that far off. But he never hit it close enough on Sunday to give himself a chance. And quite frankly, he got beat on Sunday.
Yeah, he was out of the tournament at the turn. He went out in 39. What are the positives, though? You consider Memphis, and then last week to be legitimately in contention heading into that final round. What do you like about what he's doing lately?
I think he's, like he said, I think it was a 3M. He said, I've got to clean things up. I got to quit short-sighting myself. My putting has to be a little bit more consistent. But that being said, he's making some mistakes, hitting some poor shots. You're going to hit poor shots. That's going to happen. But it's going in the right direction, because it sure didn't look like that. When you looked at him at Muirfield for those weeks there, he didn't look like anything was going in the right direction. But Memphis, I thought, all right, he's got a really good chance to go when he went out to the PGA. He didn't get it done Sunday, but he's going in the right direction. He's got to clean those things up just a little bit. He switched drivers, which is always interesting. But for a fader, just hitting pulls, that's okay. He didn't really have a two-way miss. It's just a pull, so that's not far off. So mechanically, that's important. It's putting it all together. I mean, you hear these guys talk about, I'm close. Well, he's close. And maybe this is a week he gets it done. But this is an interesting golf course. A completely different grass, temperatures. Last week, the ball wasn't going anywhere. This week, the ball's going to go a little further. You're going to catch some jumpers in the rough. Completely different in Bermuda, and he putts well on Bermuda Green, so watch out.
You talked about close. We don't know how close Jordan Spieth is. How do you analyze the season that he's had? And then last week was kind of a microcosm. He's out there on the range by himself, and everyone's reacting to him searching. What is he searching for the most?
Keyword is searching. I think when you get out there and you get in these slumps, it's happened to me, you put that pressure on himself. He's always been tough on himself, but he's not instinctive. We talked about that before we came on. You always went out there and you try as an athlete or a golfer to be instinctive. Dr. Coop, who was a sports psychologist, that's what he tried to get to react. I think he's overthinking it. I think there's so much information in his brain. And we talked about that when he was younger. He just reacted.
Right.
He played. I think for him, he just got to go out and maybe just go by himself. Just he and Michael that week, just go play and be by themselves. You kind of figure it out. I think just the pressure that he's put on himself, when you have all that great success, I mean, he never struggled as a junior, never struggled in college. He won everything, and now he's not winning.
Right.
And I think he's mentally, if you watch his body language, he's beating himself up. You can't play like that. And I'm like many people. We want to see him get it back. And, I mean, he's not far off. It's not like he's played horrible. He's had 3 top 10s, 4 top 25.
He's only missed a couple of cuts.
Missed 2 cuts, exactly. But I think he's so hard on himself right now. He's overthinking. And that's the thing. I think he's just got to go back to basics. It sounds simple, but that's really, I think, the answer for him.
Yeah, you know, he is an athlete.
Yes.
And his father told me, you know, he was more cut out to probably be the basketball player, which his brother was, and wound up playing professionally overseas. He's a read and react athlete, and it'd be interesting to see. Last year at this time, he headed into the weekend at Wyndham in good shape, missed the secondary cut. Now, some of the notable players on the 125 bubble. You know, look, there's a lot of accomplishments sitting right there. We're talking about players' champions, major champions, multiple major champions. And I mentioned Shane Lowry's name at 131. He will carry that moniker, Champion Golfer of the Year, into next year because, well, the Open Championship was canceled. Well, the man who is there, and he's going to be there all week, that is George Savaricas, and that is a big part, George. Now, George, pace yourself. Stamey's barbecue can be addictive. It is early in the week. But all these various scenarios, when you start looking at names hovering around 125, these guys are usually hovering around trying to win major championships. A plethora of storylines, and good to see you.
Good to see you too, Gary. And there are different types of pressure on the PGA Tour. There's the pressure that comes with contending on Sunday at a PGA Tour event or even a major. There's the pressure of just trying to make the cut. And for Charles Schwarzel, this past Friday at the PGA Championship, it was a new type of pressure that he had never faced before in his career. That was the pressure to save his job. This was during the second round. His final hole had to make this par putt to ultimately finish in a tie for 58th, gave him enough FedEx Cup points to save his card as part of a major medical exemption. Here's what he learned about himself in the process.
I think this is going to serve me well going forward because I think this was harder. You know, obviously the motion I showed on 18 last week, making the putt, everybody thinks it was for the cut. For me, it was a lot more than making the cut. You know, I needed 1.9 points on the FedEx Cup, which sounds, it's nothing. You know, in real terms, why are you stressing? But you still have to make 1.9 points. You have to make the cut. And I had 2 tournaments left, and you really don't want to leave it to the last one because that'll be extreme pressure. So you want to get it done. So that putt was more than just making the cut for me. That sort of sealed my goal I had for getting fulfilling my medical privileges and you know the amount of pressure that you play under, self-inflicted pressure, it really is self-inflicted, is more than I ever realized.
Schwarzel isn't exactly your typical Mr. 125. He said anything beyond this week at Sedgefield Country Club, that's just gravy on this season so far. Shane Lowry, who you touched on, Gary, the reigning Open champ, also in a similar boat where he's exempt going forward, just doesn't want to face weeks off if he doesn't make it to the FedEx Cup playoffs. We'll hear more from him in just a bit. On the flip side is Matt Wallace. He has that traditional pressure of trying to not just make the FedEx Cup playoffs, but to secure his PGA Tour card going forward. Wallace has been playing out of a special temporary category, so he knows he needs a big week at the Wyndham Championship, coming in at 132 to try and achieve his ultimate goal going forward. Here's what he had to say about how he's tackling this week at the Wyndham.
The only expectations I have of myself, of preparing, doing everything I can to be ready, come that 72nd hole, if I've got a chance to win, I just want to prepare as well as I can to be ready for that. I'm not really too bothered about the outcome, basically, so I'm more worried about the process, and the process is I've got to do my work.
Obviously the FedEx Cup playoffs are huge, and everybody wants to play in those, and everybody wants to try and win that, and get to Eastlake and a chance at the big prize. But for me, I just kind of need to focus on this week, trying to have as good a week as I can. And look, if it's good enough to get in next week, I'll need to build myself up for that and move on. And that's the great thing about this game and this tour, that no matter how well you play this week, there's always next week, or there's always something else to play for. So I'll play as well as I can this week, and then dust myself off and see what my next tournament will be, and then go on from there.
For Shane Lowry, this could be the one instance where there is no next week if he doesn't make it to the FedEx Cup playoffs, and his next event that he would play would be the Safeway Open to kick off next season prior to the U.S. Open. So I asked him, what would he do with that downtime over those 3 weeks? He said, play some golf. He had a litany of courses that he was going to try and check off during that free time, potentially across the U.S. and Gary, culminating the weekend prior to the Safeway Open with a trip to Bandon, of all places.
Wow, coming off of what will be the U.S. Amateur. We're going to get to that in a little bit. George has touched us upon something that is really important to this week, because if you do not get into the playoffs, you are getting weeks off, depriving yourself of bonus money, but also the reps before what he just said, the second major of the year.
Especially the European players, because they can't go home. They're kind of stuck here. I mean, and they've already had a shortened season. The thing that you look at, these guys talk about pressure, they're not where they expect to be. So, and they're not maybe on their A games, and that's a different type of pressure. I was always amazed when you got to that last week or two, the guys that could keep their cards under that pressure. And these guys are trying to get in the playoffs because it's bigger than it's been in the past, is because they don't want to sit around for 3 weeks. It's a big week.
You're exactly right. All right.